This episode of Around the Oval is brought to you by Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. Alex Gleitman here, back with another edition of Around the Oval, brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage on Buckeye Scoop. It is no longer the 2020 football season. Unfortunately for Ohio State, the season ended on Monday night. Not the way they wanted in the national championship against Alabama, but considering we were sitting here a few months ago with no season for the Big Ten, I think, Ohio State fans have to be happy that there was at least football, and Ohio State had a shot to win it all. They sat there Monday night. They went into that game with a shot to be national champions. They came up a little bit short, but there's nothing to be ashamed of losing to a really good Alabama team. These guys put a lot of effort and work into their season. I think Buckeye Nation should be proud of them. But with that said, we move to the offseason, and one of the hot topics is going to be recruiting. Ohio State did an excellent job in their 2021 class. They are currently sitting number 2 in all of the recruiting services rankings. They brought in a really well-balanced, talented group. There's a couple more players out there that they're still going for, but a lot of their focus is going to be on 2022. And as we shift from team coverage to recruiting on the site, I wanted to bring on an old friend of the program and a friend of mine and Buckeye Scoops, Eron Hodges. Eron was most recently the director of player personnel at Purdue. He served as assistant director of player personnel at Ohio State before that. Eron, thanks for joining the show. Appreciate you coming on.
Alex, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Of course, man. And, you got a unique story. A lot of guys, they go to college and maybe they work in the recruiting office while they're there. They impress a few people. They get hired right out of school and, kind of work their way up the ranks. But that was not the case for you. I mean, you served in the Navy. Thank you for your service. And then you had an interesting path to get where you are today. Tell us a little bit about your journey. How'd you get into this? What fueled your passion to want to do what you do, and how did you make it happen?
I'm a inner city kid, from Chicago. My parents, good Christian people, we didn't even have a television in the house, so we watched a bunch of old school videos of Betty Davis and Alfred Hitchcock and listened to old time radio classics with Fibber McGee and Molly and Jack Benny and, the Lone Ranger, the Cinnamon Bear for Christmas. So we grew up very non-traditional. So my path into football is just a mirror of my entire life, not not the average, I guess you can say. Left Chicago when I was in 8th grade. My parents moved us out of the inner city and moved us to the suburbs. So living in the neighborhood that we lived in the city, obviously it allowed us to be exposed to different things that, you probably wouldn't want your kid to be exposed to. So we were able to move out. We moved to Joliet, Illinois, where I finished up 8th grade and went to high school at Joliet West. And having that transition was probably one of the most uncomfortable transitions in my life, because you go from being an inner city kid to being the only Black kid on your block in the neighborhood. And so that uncomfort, or discomfort, allowed me, room to grow as a person, knowing how to move and be kind of like a chameleon in different situations that may arise, while all still being true to myself and who I am as a person. So got done at Joliet West, played football and ran track. And when you're in the inner city, we didn't play much football. We played basketball all the time. So I didn't actually get exposed to football until my freshman year in high school. And by that time, that's like the late time to get exposed to football. But it was almost love at first sight. The minute I started playing the game, I couldn't think of anything else. Walked around the halls in school with ankle weights around my leg just so I could hopefully get my calves bigger and get a little stronger. And that ended up graduating Joliet West. Unfortunately, my grades weren't the best because the only thing I could think about was football and track. So Left there. I was a little bit of a hothead. So I used to tell my mom, when I was 18, I'm gone, I'm getting out, I'm going to college and all this other stuff. So when I turned 18, she said, okay, well, it's time for you to go. I said, mom, the coaches said if I go to a JUCO, I can keep my scholarship. She said, nope. You said when you're 18, you're gone. And so I said, you know what? Okay, cool. I went to recruiter's office, the U.S. Navy recruiter's office right after 9/11, signed up and shipped out a couple of weeks later. So um, that was kind of, my path. I was very immature growing up. Great parents, but just not just very sheltered, and because of the shelterness, it led to immaturity, and the Navy was a great option for me to kind of get my life on track and become mature in areas in which I needed. So that's kind of like the baseline of how I started. Um, when I got in the Navy, I used to tell everybody I'm getting out the Navy, that I'm going to go to college, I'm going to play football, I'm going to go to the NFL. And for me, um, it was a constant reminder, every day getting up, hitting the weights on the ship, running routes in the hangar bay. My buddy, and he's more like a mentor, Victor Glover. He's an astronaut. He's on the International Space Station right now, and you probably see me always retweeting about him
Yeah.
or whatever the case may be. Vic played wrestling in college. He was a fighter pilot on the USS John F. Kennedy, and we met one day. He's just walking in the hangar bay. He was like, "Hey, you mind if I throw with you?" And from that point on, that built a relationship that lasts to this day. And that was in 2004 that happened. Um, and I just had great people in my corner that kind of like still push me when I was going to get out the Navy and chase my dreams. And I had my daughter, and I'm thinking about staying in because financially it just didn't make sense to get out. And Vic was one of the people I talked to, and hey, go chase your dreams. The Navy will always be here for you, and that led me to getting out and being a veteran from the state of Illinois. School is free. So I was able to get out and utilize the MGI bill to be more like a salary for me. And I was able to attend College DuPage and Joliet Junior College. I did them both at the same time to try to, hammer some stuff out while playing football and running track. I was very average at football. I was an All-American in track, though, in junior college, and ended up going to Illinois State after being in the JUCO for 2 years. Um, Went to Illinois State. At this time, I'm probably about, I don't even remember, I was probably like 25, 26 at the time, somewhere around there. And um, my body just couldn't keep up. I was old. And, so I talked to Lamar Connard, who he's now the running back coach at Miami, Ohio. I told him, I said, the only reason why I want to do this is so I can coach. And the reason why I wanted to coach football so bad is because Plexico Burst was at the club, millionaire, right? And he's making all this money, and he shot himself with his own gun in the club. You remember that, Alex?
Yep. Yep. Out here in New
Horrible.
York. Yeah.
It was a running joke for everybody
Yep.
for a while. Like, don't Plexico yourself. You know what I mean? And I said, you know what? We can't be doing this. Like, as an African American male, I wanted us to do better, and I wanted to mentor guys that look like me from places like I'm from to help us make better decisions with our lives. And that's spiraled into just helping everybody. Like, who cares where you're from? If you need help, be a good person and help somebody. Give the right advice. Really take care of that young person that's coming behind you. Because if we look at it, I look at it a certain way. Like, every kid is my kid. It doesn't matter if you choose my university or not. You're still my kid because you're a part of I guess you could say, a bigger plan. And I don't even know what that plan is, but you're a part of it. So we have to do right by each other. And so, like, that's still why, a kid could commit to, let's just call it what it is, Notre Dame. That doesn't change the fact that I enjoy spending time and talking to that young man or playing video games with that young man. It's a mentorship that goes well beyond football and that can help change how we see each other in a climate where we need to see each other, you know. Um, And so like Lamar actually, brought me on board. He said, all right, cool. You want to coach? You want to help young men? Let's go. And he was the perfect mentor to usher me into college football. He was a Purdue Boilermaker, walk on, turned scholarship kid. Um, and for the next 2 years, he, Keenan Hall, Brett Warner Powell, Brock Spack, Cody Deti, Spencer Nowinski, George Barnett, all these great, coaches. They kind of just helped shape me into the person I am, today. And even when I left Illinois State to go to Notre Dame and be a Olympic sports strength and conditioning right after I got my exercise science degree, Lamar literally gave me the keys to his car and was like, "You're a coach now. You need a car." Like, and I'm like, man, and it was a beautiful Lincoln LS. It had, peanut butter guts, black rims on it, TVs in a headrest. He literally gave me the keys to his car and was like, "This is your car now." And those were just like a young man who needed help with a lot of things. There were just good people there to help him, So, and those were my experiences. So then I kind of matured in the industry a little bit. That's the same experience I want to give to other people. The same experiences that help make me who I am to be a blessing to other people. I kind of want to, pay it back because um, rarely do we have a chance to pay things back. You know what I mean? So that's why we pay things forward, right? So having an opportunity to just, help out and, mentor a kid, give them advice, that means everything to me. So um, all that, just translated, Notre Dame, strength and conditioning turned into Valparaiso outside linebackers, where I met one of my closest friends, Alex Bailey and Casey Teagarden, who were all FBS coaches, wide receivers at Ball State, who just won the MAC, and his receivers went off. Shout out to Alex. Casey Teagarden, safeties and special teams coordinator for IU, who they did a phenomenal job, this past season and the last 2 years actually. Those guys were instrumental. A quick story about Alex and Casey. When I was at Valpo, I was making like $12,000 a year, right? And so my first conversation with Alex Bailey pretty much was, "Can I borrow $20?" Because I was so poor, I couldn't pay the toll going between Notre Dame, South Bend, and Valparaiso because I was still doing the internship at Notre Dame while coaching at Valparaiso, starting my coaching. And so one day I just didn't have the money, and I think he forgot about it, but I never forget it. That was like one of the first conversations. It was a late night in office. He was the only one in there. And I was like, "Look, I can't even get home. Can you loan me $20?" And then the other thing, I used to sleep in the office, $12,000, a year that you're making. I used to sleep in the office. So on the weekends, I used to stay the night at Casey Teagarden house. And so like just phenomenal people that when a guy was down and trying to figure out his life and his way, they stepped in and kind of, helped me grow in the industry as a coach, as a person. Um, Ended up leaving Valpo to come to Ohio State. Tony Rolinski, who was my boss at Notre Dame, he's still there right now. He's the hockey head strength coach, and he told me, he's like, why are you going to Valparaiso? Like you should be a strength coach. Like you're really good." And so he really wanted me to be a strength coach, and so he made a phone call to Coach Marotti and was like, "Yo, I got this kid who's phenomenal at what he's doing. Whatever. I think he'll be a great fit, for you guys." And so at that point in time, Coach Court called my phone. Rick Court called my phone, and he said, "Hey, we want to offer you an internship starting in December." And so I said, "Okay, I'll think about it." And life situations happened, and I needed to focus. My mom passed away of breast cancer in 2012, November 2012, and it was just the perfect opportunity. I wanted to go somewhere and just work, and people grieve differently, and when I grieve, I just bury myself in my profession. And so I needed something to help me get around that. So that's what I did. I went to Ohio State, and waking up at 3:45 in the morning, getting everything set for the lift groups and studying, and learning from arguably one of the best strength coaches ever. And this is, I don't even know how many, 8 years later, and I still feel that way about Mick. One of the best. And that led to building relationships in the facility, in the Woody Hayes facility. um, I was able to leave there. Coach Gillum saw me walking around, and he said, "Hey, do you want to just be an intern forever?" I said, "No, I'm only doing this so I can be a GA somewhere." And so he literally picked up his phone and called Paul Haynes, who just got the head coaching job at Kent State, and went to Kent State, interviewed for the job, and ended up landing it. Went to Kent State, was the linebackers GA for 2 years, got my master's in sports management there, and then left there. Went to St. Joe for a cup of coffee up in Rensselaer, Indiana, D2 school, coached linebackers, and was the strength coach there for 4 months. And then a call came from Roger Terry, who's now a scout with the Washington football team. I had to pause for a second, even though it's only been a couple months since the name
I
change.
almost said Redskins. Yeah.
yeah. So the Washington football team, and he said, "Hey, I'm leaving to take a scouting job with Washington." So they're saying, "Would you be interested?" And I told him, "No, you wouldn't be interested." I said, "Boy, you better call them people back and tell them I'm interested. Let's go." And so end up replacing Roger Terry, and he did a phenomenal job. And I remember on the interview, going into Coach Meyer's office, Pantoni brought me in Coach Meyer's office, and I wore all blue that day, like all blue, like blue suede shoes, blue. Like I had my blue suede shoes, I had a blue suit, nice. I was crispy now. I was looking real good. And he didn't say anything about the team up north or nothing like that. But he did tell me, he said, "You're a coach. I don't want to hire you because you're a coach. I don't want a coach to, be in recruiting. I want somebody who wants to be like the next NFL GM." And so I'm listening to him say that, and he said, "But it's not my call. It's Pantoni's call. I let Pantoni, hire his own guys." And so I just got blessed enough that Penn decided to roll with me on this one. So um, Pantoni offered me the job. I took the job, but that burned like in the back of my mind. You know what I mean? Like he didn't want to coach, and all this stuff. But that speaks back to me growing up and moving from inner city Chicago to the suburbs, and I'm have to blend in with my environment because you don't want to stick out. You don't want to be that sore thumb. And so I said, "Hey, you know what? I got to go, and I got to be the absolute best recruiting guy ever." So I put the coaching hat down, and I just started recruiting, learning from Adam Caltori, learning from Kyle Hendrickson, learning from Mark Pantoni, Morgan Miller, all those people that were in the office, Sammy Silverman, um, and I just tried to become the best that I could be. I want to be a sponge. So there was no pride or ego on my part. I don't believe being the oldest guy in the room and everybody's somewhere between 8 and 10 years younger than you. It was just like, "Hey, let me learn. Let me grow." And I was blessed enough to have that opportunity to learn and grow from some of the best in the business. And um, I only plan to be there 6 months. A lot of people don't know that. I was only planning to be there for 6 months. Go there, get OSU on the resume, and then get out, go to a MAC school and coach, a position or whatever. And it just turned out that, that 6 months turned into 3 years. We did some good work, and people got bonuses or promotions and title changes, and all that stuff kind of catches up to you, and it just makes more sense to stay in a specific lane versus changing your lanes all the time. So um, recruiting became quickly a passion of mine because it was all about creativity. And even today, to this day on my phone, I have a reminder that pops up every day: energy and creativity equals production. So I always try to bring energy. I always try to be creative. And if you do those two things, like great things will happen in your favor. So,
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, it was quite a journey. I think your journey's not over yet, that's for sure.
oh yeah,
But for me, covering recruiting for Ohio State, but also as a 24/7, I did a lot on the East Coast, and now I do some Rutgers stuff as well. So I'm still on the East Coast. I think, for me, the guys who I know are really good are the guys, the GAs, the recruiting guys, not the Mark Pantonis of the world, but the guys that maybe the average fan doesn't know who they are, and you start to hear their name from the recruits, like Ohio State right now, Keenan Bailey. I hear his name all the
all the
time.
time.
That dude is going to be a really, really good coach somewhere very, very soon. Um, you hear Scott Malone at Rutgers. I don't know if you know Scott. He's a guy at Rutgers right now. He used to play for Rutgers. He's doing a hell of a job. But your name was one I used to hear. You're interviewing kids, and who are you talking to at Ohio State? Who your best relationship with? And it's Coach Hodges. And there's a kid at Purdue right now, Sanusi Kane. I mean, honestly, he's one of my favorites. I know he's one of your favorites. Like, that's a kid when he was being recruited last year. And, he thought he was going to Vanderbilt, I think, before he made that Purdue visit. And he comes back and he's raving about stuff, but he's talking about and I think when you start to hear that out of recruits, and there's a bunch of guys across the country, right, that do a great job and do that. Like, that to me is like the guys that are gonna do really well in this business. And so it wasn't a surprise to me to see you get that Purdue job, and it's not going to be a surprise to me to see you get your next job and do really well.
The thing before we move on to the next portion, Keenan Bailey is like he's a great dude. Like, I can't say enough of good stuff about Keenan. When Keenan and I first met, we actually clashed a little bit. You know, I think we clashed for maybe about the first week or two. He's a Notre Dame grad, and you know what I mean. And it's just, but Keenan is one of the most sincere people that you could possibly find. Sincere, hardworking, understands people very well. Great coach. Like, and I tell him all the time, like, watch out, because like he hasn't like hit that trajectory yet. But when he does, and he's coaching his own position and he's recruiting his own guys right now, he just still soaking things up, and he is a sponge. That is one dude that people, they need to know his name. They need to know who Keenan Bailey is. The other dude that you mentioned, Sanusi, I can't say enough about Nusi. Like, he's reading a book right now, Atomic Habits. My girlfriend referred it to me. I read it. I referred it to Nusi. He's reading it now, and we just have great conversations, man. Like, at a young age, he is probably one of the smartest, humblest, down to earth, hardworking kids that you can. And I said kids. I feel like I just disrespected him on that. Young men that you probably will ever encounter. Sharp. He's everything that you want in a freshman to come in and be a part of your program. And I think I told him the other day, like, on Twitter, in 2 years he's gonna be a team captain. You can see it. Like, certain people, you can just see it happening for them. I see it happening for Nusi. That's like I tell a lot of people, man, like that relationship is for life.
No
That's a
doubt.
good one.
I'm excited to watch his career unfold. I saw him, not to, I got a big Ohio State audience here, not to go too much on Purdue, but I saw that this kid was an awkward looking freshman, sophomore. He was hanging out with kids who were like guaranteed D1 kids. I mean, and all of them went D1, FBS football. And they were like dudes, and this kid like hadn't grown into his body yet. He was just trying to hang with these kids. And like, I was like, man, I was like, this is the best kid ever, but like, he's never going to be anything. And then all of a sudden 1 year, like, his body, like, he just grew into his body. He transformed and he became a dude. And he always just, he always had the same work ethic and the same focus and all that, and the same determination. But I think I hit you up and I was like, you got to look at this kid. Because I was just,
that's how I found out about him.
I
You
was
hit me
just
up and you
so
told me about
impressed.
him.
Yeah, I was just so impressed with him, and I think he's just scratching the surface. So I'm really excited to see what he becomes. But talk about Ohio State. Two guys I want to talk about. First, Mark Pantoni. I mean, listen, he kind of transformed, I think, this um, player personnel role at the college level. I mean, Urban kind of put him into that role at Florida to some extent, and made it even bigger, I think, at Ohio State. And now you're seeing these GMs or whatever, titles you want to give, but they're whole departments. That used to be one guy, maybe. I remember when I was in school, it
Mhm.
was just Greg Gillum. Greg Gillum, you know, it was just Greg Gillum in the recruiting department,
Yep.
basically. And now Mark's got a staff of, I don't know, 20 plus people.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
15. It's up there.
Yeah. It's crazy. What do you think? I mean, you worked for him for 3 years. You were around him for longer than that. What makes him so good at what he does?
Man, that there's so many answers to that, man. Like, for me, I can't say enough about Mark Pantoni as a leader, as a mentor, as a friend. Um, he handles things the right way. He's very professional. He cares about other people. He cares about the growth of his people. Um, he allows you to be yourself. He puts you in opportunities where you can earn trust with, just say, for instance, if you're the number one assistant to Pantoni, he allows you to be in situations where you actually lead. And then you can get your face in front of the Chris Ashes of the world, where Cal Torrey end up going to Rutgers, or myself with Luke Fickle. He puts you in situations that allow you to grow and develop as a person, as a recruiter, as a leader. He takes you under his wing and he literally just molds you. He's the most organized person that I know, and he knows things before anybody knows him. I swear to you, he probably has every kid in America on a notification on his phone. You know, um, he knows things, and I probably come in his office. Hey, Pan, you see this? Yeah, I saw it about 10 minutes ago. Wait, what? Like, how do you have that much time in your day? Like, he's very efficient at what he do. You know, um, and he's very detailed in his notes and his evaluations, and how he built relationships, his energy. He's dialed in. He's one of those people, man, where um, every day he train at the edge, at his craft, and he hires great people around him. I think one of the most overlooked characteristics in a leader is picking the right people, to support you in your mission. And I think that Pantoni has a wonderful skill set of always hiring or replacing um, great people with great people, and it doesn't miss a beat for him and everything that he's done there. I mean, Justin Perez, Weston Zernochel. You got who else is over there? Like, my mind kind of Zane Stevens. Um, so many just great people. Zach Swartz, he brought him in, and then he
He's
brought in
amazing. Yeah.
a whole video team, and he allowed Zach to do his thing and hire who he wanted to hire. Giving guys autonomy over what their expertise is. I think that's something that is special, and just if there's a flaw in Pantoni, I can't find it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's awesome at what he does. He I I wish I could come up with a better term, but I want to say, like, I could fart and he'd sniff it before it came out of my ass. Like, like it's he's I mean, he's on top of it. Like,
Mm.
I don't know. People are always like laugh when I tell them he reads all the message boards and stuff like that.
Oh,
Like,
read the message boards, read articles that drop. Like, I mean, the guy was going to be a
yeah.
doctor, for goodness sake. So, like, he can, like, go through stuff. So, like, he's on top of it, and still to this day, like, we talk, like, maybe not on the phone, but at least via text, at least a couple times a week, or if it's a joke, or if it's, like, he's dialed in,
Yeah.
and
He's
he's very authentic.
Yeah, he doesn't miss a beat. There's no doubt about that. And listen, I'm sure he learned a lot of that. Coach Meyer was very detail oriented guy, very organized. Obviously, for you, I mean, your relationship. I didn't know that story. It seems like it started out. I don't want to call it a rocky footing, but he clearly didn't want you in that role. But by the time you left, I mean, he's on record you know, singing your praises and talking about how good of a job you did at Ohio State. So your relationship obviously grew during your time at Ohio State. Tell me what it was like working for Urban.
Um, Working for coach he's intense. I remember we lost to Penn State, and I go in his office to hand him like something. It could be whatever, something dealing with recruiting or whatever. And I remember not wanting to walk into that office because before you even hit the door, he's the only one in his office, and you could feel the energy permeating from the office. And you're like, oh my God, I don't even want to come in here and drop off these papers because it wasn't a good thing. You know what I mean? We got a field goal block, ran back, all kind of stuff that game. Um, but he's the most um, take it and run with it person that you will probably ever meet. Like, oh, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. Take it and run with it. Push it, push it, push it. And he has all these isms, and one of them to me was always, yeah, don't keep doing what you're doing. Like if it's good, yeah, okay. Or don't keep doing what you're doing. Enhance it and make it better. It was always something that could be enhanced. It was never like, okay, great, the job is done. He was always saying, okay, that's good. Enhance it, make it better. So he was always pushing the envelope of what it could be, of what the kids wanted to see, of how we should do things. Um, he was just that type of guy, and he gave you the freedom to go do it. It wasn't micromanaged. It wasn't this. He wanted to focus on winning and getting a team ready, and making sure that everybody knew how to respond to chaos and things of that nature. Um, he was just, and I know a lot of people may not see him the way that the people who have worked for him sees him, but he was one of the best people that I could ever have dreamed of working for. And he helped push me to to the limits, of what I can do, and he helped challenge me of how to recruit, how to talk, how to push, how to motivate, how to inspire, how to do those sort of things. So a lot of it is just set back and learn from watching. And he is everything that he preaches. He's not the honesty, treat women with respect, no drugs, no stealing, no weapons kind of guy. Like, he lives those messages. He's not. He's. I mean, I can't say enough about him. Like, it's Urban Meyer. What are we talking about? You know what I mean? Like, you get what you see, and he's going to give you the absolute best, and he demands that you give him the same. So.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I don't know if you know the guy who owns our site or co-owns our site, Kirk Barton.
Oh yeah,
Um,
Kurt.
yeah, you know Kirk. I mean, he worked for him. I think it was 1 or 2 years as like a GA, and Kirk always tells this funny story. Like, not for him, but I think with Corey Dennis and Zach Smith told us a story too. Like, Urban fired him like 7 times. It's just like, it's because he wasn't delivering what he needed him to deliver. And just hearing the stories, I think you have to be a certain type of person to be able to work for him. Like, you can't, it's not for
Yeah,
the weak minded. There's no doubt
yeah,
about that. You got to be able to respond and bounce back. And I think he respects that out of people versus,
yes.
you're not just going to quit when I yell at you. So I'm sure you had plenty of those moments during your time there where you were like,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely. Like, so he would try you a little bit and kind of see, you know, where you at. I've been fired before by him and rehired in the same breath. Um, this one particular time, um, we're going through the board and we're just sitting there. It's him and I, and and I think Pam was in there too. And we're talking about a specific player. I'm not going to say the player name. I won't say the coach name. But we're talking, and the kid name comes up, and I said, Coach, he can't play here. And then he said, well, so and so said that he could. I said, he can't, Coach. I've watched this kid play from his junior year to senior year. He cannot play here. Well, go get so and so. And so I go get the coach or whatever and bring him into Coach Meyer's office. And we're talking through the situation. Hey, tell me about this player. Oh, Coach, he's going to be a first round draft pick. He's going to be this, he's going to be that. And then Coach Meyer sits back in his chair and he's thinking that I'm not going to say exactly what I said, how I said to the coach that I said to Coach Meyer, to him. So he said, well, Eron doesn't agree with you. And so now he's sitting back and in my head, I'm thinking like, this dude is like trying to try me and see if I'm not going to say what I actually said to him. And then I said exactly the way I said it, and then the coach responded, well, I've been doing this 20 something years. And he's as good as it gets. And I said, Coach, well, how many of them years did you spend watching the kids film? Because I watched every single game from his junior year to his senior year. And then from that point on, long story short, we ended up taking a kid and
didn't work out.
Didn't work out, So those are stories where you sit back and as a recruiter, for those of you who are recruiters who watch an Alex show, you got to stick to your guns, man. Like there are enough yes men in this business and in this industry. We don't need another one. We need somebody who understands their values. They understand their goals. They understand evaluation. They understand relationship building and stick to them and don't cower to somebody just because of a title or of a salary. Just be true to yourself and things always work out. And still to this day, me and that coach, we disagreed in front of the head coach, but if I text him, he's responding. If I'm in town, he's talking about going to go pick up, something from a local shop, in the neighborhood. I can't say where because then it gives it all away. But it's all about sticking to your guns and being true to yourself. And people actually love conflict because conflict helps push, the real ones. Not everybody, and so I'll take that back. The real ones appreciate conflict. They appreciate strife. They appreciate the struggle. The ones who aren't real, they want people to just agree, and that's not the way that greatness is formed. It's formed through strife.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like if you have everyone just yes man agreeing, like it's never going to go the way you need it to. I mean, you need people to see things differently, and you're going to be right a lot of times. You're going to be wrong a lot of times. But
yeah, I've been wrong plenty of times.
That's what me and Bill Green and Mark Givler. We talk all the time. Like, look, we're gonna do the best we can when we're going out and we're seeing these kids and we're evaluating them. And if there's a kid I think is really good, like I'm gonna say it, and I'm not gonna be scared to say it. And if I'm wrong, I got to be man enough to admit I'm wrong, and vice versa. If I think a kid's really good and he's not, look, I saw John Mechie in high school. I thought he was good. I didn't think he was Alabama good, and he's just in the system and he's got Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle, whatever. But I mean, he's turned into a pretty nice player. I mean, he could be the number one guy for Alabama next year. And I'll sit here. I was wrong. I thought John Mechie was like a middle tier Power 5 kid. Maybe a Penn State. That's not middle tier, but maybe a Penn State. I thought Penn State would have been a really good fit for him. And he went to Alabama. I couldn't believe Nick Saban took him, but Nick Saban is Nick Saban for a reason, and I'm me for a reason. But
for every story that somebody's right, like in that instance, yeah, I was right when it came down to that specific player. I've been wrong a shit ton of times, and there's really no exact science to it. Nobody's 100% in selecting players. Like, and if you are, like, I don't know, like you just special. But more often than not, if you're lucky and if you're good enough, you will be in the 65, 70 range on hit, you know. Um,
Yep.
but everybody's going to pick a bad player from time to
Yeah.
time. The most important thing um, is not, I guess you could say, is making sure that you miss on a bad person. You know what I mean? That's what you want to miss on. You want to make sure that you're missing on bad people, bad character, bad guys. That's where you want to make sure that you're missing on. A player from time to time, you're going to slip up and take somebody that you probably shouldn't, or you're going to rush things because of a decommitment late, and you're just going to grab a guy and whatever the case may be. But just make sure you don't, you know, pick bad people. You know, that's one area because bad people get you fired.
No doubt. No doubt. And I mean, you've done a pretty good job at Purdue. I think last year it was like the number 32 class in the country, 25 the year before. I mean, those are some of the best classes in Purdue history. So you clearly didn't miss too much there. I thought you did a heck of a job, and you brought Purdue recruiting to another level. Before we just jump into the process in the last part of the show real quick, I know you only overlapped with him 1 year at Ohio State, but Ryan Day,
Hmm.
I think he's a star, man. I think he's done an amazing job. He's lost 2 games in 2 full years. He had those 3 games when Coach Meyer was suspended the year before. So, and the 2 losses are to Clemson in a semifinal in a close game, and to Alabama in a national championship. Um, you worked with him in 2017. He was at Ohio State as co-offensive coordinator. Did you know then that he would be, I guess, what he is today and what I think he's headed toward?
Well, I knew who was going to be the head coach. I knew that much, just because of how professional he was in office, how he recruited, how personable he was with everybody in the building. Um, you knew it, you know, and it wasn't a secret because, like, um, I mean, I think what was it after the first year he got the big contract. You know what I mean? And then Coach Meyer kind of, was kind of hinting towards like him being the successor, So I knew he was going to be the head coach of Ohio State. I knew that the way that the infrastructure was set up via Mark Pantoni, Brian Voltellini, Ryan Stamper, Mickey Marotti, the whole nutritional staff at the time with Sean, and the way the infrastructure is set up, that it was an easy slide into it because everything was built on a very, very firm uh, foundation. So the success that he's having, I think, is a testament to how a program is built right. From the infrastructure to the players to the coaches. So I'm not surprised at all at the success that he's had, and you know, um, and the people there. They just hire great people. You know.
No doubt. And so before we talk about what's next for you to end the show, I want to talk about just the recruiting process. Like, a lot of fans wonder, like, how do you guys like how do you guys decide, like, what's the process of evaluating a player, and what are the things you look at when you're like watching film and evaluating guys in person?
Well, everything changed. Position to position. Um, so there's a lot that goes into it. But I try to be as simplistic as possible. Um, First off, you obviously gather the list, right? So you gather a list and you get the list going, and then you start, the initial portion of highlight, watching. I think right now, um, the best way to do it in a world where there's so many people and you got to try to get through as many good players as possible. You watch the highlight tape first, the junior year, and if it's intriguing, then you progress and you start watching the game tape, and then and then once you watch the game tape and you come up and say, hey, this is the guy. Now you're starting to push it on to the higher ups. If you're a younger guy underneath Mark Pantoni, for instance, you push the tape to Mark Pantoni. You're watching them weekly, and Pan is watching the kids game cut ups weekly. Then it go to the coach, and then they start, watching it and seeing if it's somebody that fits the system, based off what they want. And then it goes to, the position coach. So from Pantoni, area coach, then it goes to the position coach. And then all those people is gotta kind of gotta like check off. And everybody don't have to agree, but it has to be, something special about them, right? First and
Like
foremost,
this kid could play at Ohio State.
like this kid can play at Ohio State.
We may
The
not take
one
him,
thing
but
that you have to be, but he can play. The one thing that you look at that is consistent across the board in college football and guys in my role is he has to be a competitor. I put something up on my profile today about what are you? Are you a 0? Are you a 1? You're a 2? You're a 3? You're a 4? You're a 5? And basically, that's Coach Meyer's system of being a 5, and everybody should be a fierce competitor, always exceeding your skill set, and that's what you want to find, especially at a lower level school. You want to make sure a guy is a competitor, that a guy goes hard every day, that he doesn't take any days off, that it's +2 in everything that he does. If you have that as a baseline, then now you can build off the other things. You can say, okay, cool, change the direction, tackling, how he is as an insert player, um, stiff, fluid hips, those type of deals. Now you can go ahead and work through the whole checklist of what he has and what he doesn't have. Does he have ball skills? How does he catch? Run after catch, route running. Now you get into all those things. But if he's not a competitor, then that kind of start taking a little value off of the kid already, because in this day and age, people are looking for the Chris Olaves to come in and play early. They're looking for the Michael Jordans to come in and start as a true freshman. They're looking for the Billy Prices. These dudes are fierce competitors. So I think the first piece of it is making sure that somebody competes, and not only competes, who's a fierce competitor. Then after that, let's get into his attributes, and then um, let's dive into the intangibles, like what makes this kid special, because you can't take a roster full of average people. You will never be Ohio State if you do that. All right. You have to find out what is special about this kid. What are some of the intangibles that get this kid going? JT Barrett is a great analogy. Um, the guy on, fourth and what was it, 2 against Michigan, he found a way to get the first down. And then next play or whatever it was, 2 plays later, hand the ball off to Curtis Samuel. He jet sweeps into the end zone for the game. No matter what, you put him in a situation. Marcus Ball, that touchdown going that JT threw for the go ahead against Penn
Penn
State a
State.
couple years back. Yeah, like the dude was a winner. Like his intangible was he won. No matter what happens, he finds a way to get through adversity. I know Joe Burrow didn't finish off his career with the Bucks, but Jesus, we all knew he was a competitor back then. Like everybody in the building knew. The guy was just he was special. And you can feel it, how he handled business, how he walked amongst people, even when he was the backup, even when he was on, the scout team. Is just different, the energy. So making sure that you find the special qualities in others, and I think that's part of it as well. So it goes a little bit beyond the measurables, right? You have to find out and dig deep and find the immeasurables. Like say, for instance, Chris Olave, as skinny as he was, Ryan Day went out there, I think, to California. I think he went out there to see a quarterback,
He
and
went
he
to see
came
Jack
back with a
Tuttle.
wide receiver. Yeah, yeah. And then he came back, and it was a wide receiver that he was like raving about. Like, coach, like, what are we talking about? Like, we ain't watch this kid. We ain't, you know what I mean? So we start watching the kid, but like Coach Day's just raving about this dude. And then Chris Olave is Chris Olave, um, was a little 3-star, wasn't highly rated, wasn't highly recruited, only had a couple offers, and Coach Day stuck to his guns, and they took him. And Chris Olave, I mean, what are we talking about? This kid is going to be, a first or second round draft pick in the league next year. But um, those are real stories about the intangibles, finding somebody who's special. It got to be special. Um, and then some guys, you got to find the guys who are lunch pail guys, who I think is the Sam Hubbards of the world, who come in, you don't quite know what he is, but he's a lunch pail guy. He's going to come in, he's going to bring his lunch pail and his hard hat every day, and he's going to go hard in the paint. Those guys are important too, to a program too, and this is even as real as walk-ons like CJ Saunders. When Coach Fickle brought him up, I'm like, all right, stick him at corner. Like, we need corners. And, we had fall camp. And I think like the third or fourth day of fall camp, he picks the ball off and run it the other way. And we're like, damn. And, of course, Meyer said, who's that guy who, who had that interception? Get up here, break it down, And then CJ Saunders become one of the leaders of social injustice for the team, and he's a part of being a captain for the team, and all sorts of things that has happened in CJ's career, and he's a Buckeye legend because of it. Those are just special. Just guys are special, and you ain't got to be. And there's to the recruits who may be listening or kids. You don't have to be a scholarship athlete to be special. Those are more tailored towards the attribute side, but you could be a special individual in how you live your life, how you conduct your life, and how hard you work. To be honest, being a hard worker nowadays is a superpower because a lot of people don't have it. So if you're able to tap into something, a higher source, and get a little bit more work ethic, that's special.
Yeah, no doubt. I think I agree 1,000%. I think back. You mentioned Joe Burrow. First of all, you mentioned Marcus Ball. Maybe Ohio State's in the playoff that year if they don't. Oh no, was that the year they lost to you guys? That was the year after. That was the year after. They lost to
Yeah.
Iowa. They lost to Oklahoma and Iowa.
We lost to Oklahoma and Iowa that year.
Yeah, you guys beat them the next year, and that's why they didn't make the playoff. I think I texted you before that game, and I said I think you guys could beat them, and you didn't believe me. But
no, so here's the thing with me. Like, I knew that roster like the back of my hand, and there wasn't a tink in the armor outside of maybe one position. But you had Chase Young, you had, all these really good players. And to be honest, when I tell people the story of like, how it happened, I just believe that God loved Tyler Trent more than he loved the Buckeyes that night. The kid went through some struggles, and he was our team captain. And I think that for that moment in time, it was somebody that needed to be inspired by Tyler and his strength. And I think that God stepped in, and he made a couple more plays go our way. And at the end of the night, we're celebrating and all that good stuff. To me, that's what I tell people all the time.
Rondale Moore helped too, but
that's my guy. He definitely did. He did more. He did more for recruiting, and I get a lot of credit for the classes that got put together, the historical classes. But to be honest, Rondale Moore captivated a lot of people, and the product that he was able to put on the field day in and day out gave me something to talk about, gave me something to pass on to recruits and to show them the vision of what the program could be. So to the credit, not just to Rondale, but to David Blau and to Elijah Sindelar and all those great players, it's just, kind of a tribute to them,
Yeah, no doubt. And the other thing you mentioned Joe Burrow. I used to cover the Semper Fidelis All-American game for 24/7 Sports, and Joe was out there for that game. It was kind of the third tier game, so no one really cared about it, but it was awesome for me because you got like access that you wouldn't at Under Armour or the Army Bowl. You got to see these guys practice and be around them really close. And I had seen Joe throw a few times because obviously Ohio State recruited him and he was a commit, but I never got to I spent a week with Joe Burrow and his family. And I got to see Joe in action. And I just came back and I was like, this guy's going to be a dude. Like, there was no doubt in I wanted him as an Ohio State 2-time grad. Like, I wanted him to be the quarterback at Ohio State because I knew he was going to succeed. Now, look, I mean, Dwayne Haskins, a first round pick, and he's playing. Well, he was playing in the NFL. I think he'll be back soon. But at the time, I just felt Joe was, not only did he kind of give you the best combination of a guy who can run and throw, which I thought was important coming after JT Barrett, but just knowing his character and the type of guy he was and the leader. I saw in 1 week how he became the leader of a team at an all-star game where these guys don't really care about winning and losing and all that much. They wanted to have fun, not get hurt, and show out a little bit. But just seeing him become a leader of that team was enough to sell me, like, that he could do that at the next level. So I'm glad that you guys saw that. And obviously, LSU saw it in a big way. And he's going to be a great Bengal. He's going to be a great NFL guy. But second to last thing I want to talk about is this year must have been really tough for you recruiting wise. No camps, not being able to evaluate kids live. I want you to talk about that and how difficult that is for staffs around the country. And I also want you to be able to give advice to some kids out there. I think a lot of kids got cheated this year. There's so many kids who earn offers. Like Terry McLaurin would not be a Buckeye if it wasn't for camp. Darren Lee would not be a Buckeye if it wasn't for camp. There's a lot of stories like that. And Darren was a first round pick. Terry McLaurin is one of the best receivers in the NFL. And there's a lot of stories like that. And I've seen personally a lot of kids in workouts this year where coaches haven't been able to go. And I'm like, this kid could play, group of 5 football, but he's ending up at high level FCS because they're only going off. And in New York City, they didn't play a season. So he has no senior film either. So what's your advice? I mean, hopefully things go back to, I don't even say normal, but where you're able to evaluate kids in person and all that stuff. But what's your advice to those kids who are trying to get those opportunities that are the 99%, not the 1% of kids who, you watch the film and you're like, offer. But the 99% who aren't. And then also, how hard was that for you as a coach to have to deal with that?
Well, I'll answer the first question. Extremely hard. I love having kids in person around me, parents. Love that, just the energy, the vibe, being able to just show them what we'll be able to do for their child. And then also just having that personal connection. You can only do so much over Zoom. You could only do so much, Zoom tours. You can do only so much virtual visits. But the tape is the tape, and it is what you see. A lot of kids you won't be able to see, so you see in their sophomore tape, so they won't have offers until they play in the spring or whatever the case may be. But the advice to the kids, it's simple. I had a kid, I think it was yesterday or today. It was yesterday, and then today he just got a MAC offer. And we were talking, and he said, "Yo, it's just hard, coach." And I told him, I said, "Look, man, your job ain't to worry about things you can't control. You can't control if you have a season or not. You can't control that. Only thing you can do is go to work and work as hard as you can so that when your time comes, like when the lights are on, you will perform. Simple." So the COVID-19, that's white noise. It does not matter for you and your goals. Situations of that come up at home or whatever, those are just hurdles that you got to hop over, and you got to keep going and keep fighting. Because if you give up now, then when the lights are on, you're going to fall, and when the lights are all on you, and you can't do that. So use this time to really hone your skills. And I talk about being in a laboratory all the time. Right now is the perfect time. All right, cool. You can't play until whatever you can play, right? Go in the laboratory and build something crazy, man. Right now, you're Dr. Jekyll trying to create Mr. Hyde on the football field. And the only way you could do that is if you go and be that mad scientist and craft every single thing about your game, your technique, how you step into your throw, how smooth you are in your drop back. your arm placement when you follow through with the ball. Every single thing that you do. Are you winding up, or are you having a crisp release? Those sort of things. Like, go clean it up in the lab. Spend as much time as you can in the lab creating something that's a pure monster for the world to see when you step on that field come Friday.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that the kids get a chance this summer to get back on the field in front of coaches. I'm not seeing it happening probably in the spring, but I just hope that, that they get the chance to do that. I hope official visits are back in the fall. A lot of kids had to make really tough decisions this year without
Oh
seeing
yeah.
schools. And, it was different, but I hopefully things are starting to look up. I think, vaccines here, and hopefully we learned a lot in the last year on how to deal with this thing. So hopefully things change. But I want to end the show. Obviously, for people who don't know, you're not at Purdue anymore. Time for the next opportunity. I know you're not the type of guy who probably wants to get too much into that or air dirty laundry or anything along those lines. But, I do just want to ask you, what's next and what your outlook is on your future in the industry.
Right. So, and you're absolutely right. There will be no dirty laundry aired or anything like that. Have nothing but love and respect, especially for my players at Purdue. Love them so much. I want them to win. I'm cheering for them, just like I cheer for the Bucks, man, and the kids who are in the playoffs, and Jeremy Rucker with that crazy catch and all that good stuff. Like, so I'm cheering for them. Wishing them absolute the best. Unfortunately, it wasn't a fit, and my recruiting style isn't kind of what um, they were looking for. They thought they were getting one thing, and they got this loud social media, you know, cool Jordan talking, Madden playing, type of vibe, and it is what it is. But um, there's nothing but love and respect, and the next team that 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 brings me on. They know what they're getting. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. We're going to be cutting edge. We're going to push the envelope. We're going to have energy. We're going to be creative, and we're going to produce like I have in my career. It's just a time to kind of reset, recalibrate, refocus, and go into the lab again and come up with my version of Mr. Hyde. So it's going to be fun, and I can't wait just to get back to work and really find a program. And this time around, I kind of purpose in my heart that when I do land at another institution, to really take time, whether it's a couple weeks or a month, and before I start selling a program, really dive deep in a program, because I want to be able to believe in something that there's no way in hell that I would ever want to leave. So I'm going to dive deep, and I'm going to find out exactly what's going on, how things work, how things go, the infrastructure, what kind of services we provide for our young men, things of that nature. And then I'm going to go ahead and really kind of highlight those things, because at the end of the day, um, I want to make sure that a university puts the kid in the absolute best position possible to succeed if football doesn't work out, and that the importance of the program is the focus of the program is on the young men, and it's not just lip service. It's actually what it's about. I got in this business, like we started the conversation, we'll end the conversation. I got in this business to influence young men's lives for the better, so that they didn't have to um, do things or hang out with the wrong people or go to the club with a gun in your pants and shoot yourself or whatever the case may be. I wanted to make sure that I was a part of the change. So my goal, I live by code, and I learned it when I was 18 in the Navy. Honor, courage, commitment, and honor is doing things that's right. Not just sometimes, but all the time. When it's hard, do what's right. And obviously when it's easy, do what's right. So I want to do what's right by the kids, and I want a program to select me, that's what they're about, that our core values align.
No doubt. And you don't need to hear this from me, but you're one of the best I've been around or had a relationship with. I talk to a lot of guys like you across college football. Um, trying to help give young men who I feel deserve it opportunities and get them noticed and use those relationships where I can to help them out. And you do everything the right way. Your track record speaks for itself. The creativity that I saw from you at Purdue when you got to run the show. I mean, whether it's the Game of Thrones thing that you guys had, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, playing Madden with recruits. I mean, that just super innovative stuff. I just think you really know how to relate to these kids, and whatever program, who knows, maybe it's the Jacksonville Jaguars with Coach Meyer. Whatever program gets you next, I mean, is truly going to be lucky to have you. So I really appreciate you jumping on the show, and I wish you the best of luck, and honored to call you a friend, and really just going to root for you unless you end up at the team up north. But other than that, we'll be rooting for you.
You know what? And if I do end up at the team up north, I'm just gonna cash app you beer money.
I hear you. Well, thanks again for your time. Really appreciate it. We'll keep
Yeah,
our
no
fingers crossed for
problem.
you, and I'm sure we'll hear some news soon.
All right, brother. Appreciate you.
This episode of Around the Oval was brought to you by Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. If you've been thinking about refinancing or buying a house, check out our sponsor, Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. They offer low rates for refinancing and home purchase loans, including first-time home buyer programs, down payment assistance, and cash-out home equity loans. Check out revolutionmortgage.com/tpennington.